My name is Joaquin Esquivel. I'm chair of the State Water Resources Control Board. Today is Wednesday, February 21st. It is 9:02 a.m. and I would like to call this meeting to order. With me here today is Vice Chair Doreen Diadamo, Board Member Nicole Morgan, Board Member Laurel Firestone, and Board Member Sean McGuire. Joining us as well is Executive Director Eric Oppenheimer, our Chief Deputy Jonathan Bishop, our Chief Counsel Michael Loffer, our Clerk of the Board is Courtney Tyler, and assisting her today is Margie Argel and Michael Reed. As you can see, this is a hybrid meeting, so we have both in-person and online components. If you're viewing us online, you're either viewing through our traditional webcast at YouTube Live or the Cali PA website. But if you intend on commenting on any items on today's agenda, you need to be on the Zoom platform. There are instructions on how to do so at the top of the agenda, a link, and a form. But if you're having any challenges getting onto the platform, please do email the clerk of the board at board.clerk@waterboards.ca.gov, and she can help you get onto the platform. Once you are on the platform, your camera will be off. You won't be on mute until is your time and opportunity to speak on the item you've indicated. For everyone in the room, good morning. Good to see you all. We're here in Sacramento in the Cali PA building. Just a few announcements for us as well. Please do observe the exits. If there happens to be an emergency, we'll calmly file out to Cesar Chavez Plaza and await any further direction. Also, if you intend on commenting on any of today's items, there is a QR code on the side of the room and also a tablet to be able to sign up. Once you are at the microphone, please do introduce yourself and any organization you are a part of. Also, lastly, please do silence any phones in order to have an uninterrupted discussion here today. With that, this morning, we are beginning with the Superior Accomplishment Award and would like to call up Karen Mogus to be able to kick us off with the award. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Esquivel, members of the board. I'm Karen Mogus, Deputy Director, Division of Water Quality here at the State Water Board. And I am pleased as punch, as always. This is my favorite thing to do, to present a Superior Accomplishment Award to the Once Through Cooling Policy team. I'm going to introduce them after I make my remarks, but would like them to come up and, be noticed, be seen.
Recognized.
So this team completed, and then we have a couple of folks who are online as well. So we'll introduce them at the end. So the team completed 3 amendments to the water quality control policy for the use of coastal and estuarine waters for power plant cooling. The amendments were necessary to allow for 4 once-through-cooled power plants to continue to generate electricity that is needed to keep the lights on as energy demand increases due to climate change and the state shifts to clean energy sources. The team accomplished these amendments under extremely short deadlines. Normally, it takes about 2.5 years, if you're lucky, to develop amendments, conduct the public process, and obtain Board and Office of Administrative Law approval. The team completed 2 of the amendments in less than a year each, and the third in just over a year. That's just like light speed when it comes to basic water quality control plan amendments. For each amendment, the team coordinated with energy agency staff and staff from other resource agencies, gathered and analyzed energy and flow data, drafted an advisory committee report and hosted advisory committee meetings, analyzed environmental and economic impacts and documented it in a comprehensive staff report, hosted public hearings, conducted outreach, consulted with tribes, solicited public comments, responded to comments in over 900 comment letters, and conducted themselves professionally during highly contentious board meetings. They did all this with a high level of professionalism and integrity. Over multiple years of working under pressure of an expedited schedule, the team remained positive, smiling, supportive, and steadfast. And so with that, please join me in congratulating the team on a job well done and all of the achievements that they have made.
Hear, hear. And Karen, as you hand those out, I have to add, as you recounted the work that the staff did, just as you said, how contentious the discussions could be, but how professional folks were throughout it. And just have to acknowledge, this is also our team as well that is, looking to do work on our ocean plan and have, a lot on their plates. So to be able to have accomplished all this amid what is a lot of need and a lot of incredible work still yet before them, just wanted to add our thanks here. It really means a lot.
Yep, we'll be back with the calculation of the mitigation payments here in a month or so. All right, so starting with Kat Fake, the senior of the Ocean Standards Unit. Julie Johnson, she was one of our early amendment lead staff. She has since moved over to a different unit in the division. I won't say that this work caused her to leave, but thank Julie. Then we have Sammy Mishishita, who joined us as a Sea Grant Fellow, has now gotten a permanent position in the. Excited to have her on board and excited to have her working on this as well. Then we have two folks online. Catherine Hagan is on video right now. She's has been our lead attorney ever since Marley Wood. I have to make mention of Marley Wood, who has been with this program or was with this program from the very beginning and slogged through a lot of the work, both to get the policy over the finish line and implement it with us. She has since retired, but she definitely was an integral part of the team as well. And Catherine Hagan took over and it was seamless. So thank you, Catherine. Online. And then Jonathan Dolan has really stepped up and taken a lead role, both presenting to the board, presenting to the advisory committee, working with the agencies. He's really done a great job. He's not feeling well today, and so he's joined us via Zoom as well. So thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you for that. And let's take our traditional photo quickly. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate the time to be able to acknowledge, again, just the incredible work our folks are doing here in the institution. So just thank you, Karen, for lifting up the work. That brings us to our public forum. And don't have the public forum list right in front of me, so I'm looking to my clerk, but we can.
Our two public forum commenters are not on.
Okay.
Want to get in one moment. Somebody just signed up, so it could be right now.
Okay. It sounds like we have just a couple of public commenters. Both aren't currently on the platform. One of them just recently signed on. So we'll give a quick moment in case that is one of the commenters. And if not, we can proceed through the agenda and then always come back to any public forum commenters that join us later. All right, let's continue on. And again, if any of the two public forum commenters find themselves joining here later, do just raise your hand, and we'll make sure and circle back to you. That brings us then to the first item of board business, which is consideration of the February 6th board meeting minutes. If there are any adjustments or discussion, otherwise, be ready for a motion.
I'll move to adopt the February 6th minutes.
I'll second.
Thank you both. Ms. Tyler, can you please call a roll call vote?
Board Member McGuire.
Aye.
Board Member Firestone. Aye. Board Member Morgan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Diademo. Aye. And Chair Esquivel.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you as well. Board meeting minutes are adopted. Next brings us to a tranche of informational items. First being our current hydrologic conditions and response. And we'll give a moment to transition. Good morning, Ms. Bean. Good to see you.
Good morning, board members. Good to see you too. I have just a brief update today. Again, I'm Jessica Bean with the Division of Water Rights. And if we could go to the next slide, please. So I thought to start out today, we would just kind of do a little recap before we dive into the specifics to discuss where we are statewide in terms of our precipitation. And so this is a map here that shows the 30-day % of normal precipitation. So compared to our historical average, this is from mid-January to mid-February. There is not one yet that would incorporate the current storms that we've just had, but it does cover the storms we received in early February, which were substantial. And so the blue to kind of bluish green colors on the map are showing above average precipitation, and then the brown to whiter colors are showing below average precipitation. And then overlaying that, you'll see some yellow and brown lines. That would be the drought monitor. So just kind of give you a snapshot of what was happening really kind of the beginning of the year in terms of the precipitation we got after we had a pretty warm start to the water year. So this is great to see. February precipitation is well above average for most of California. And our snowpack conditions are improving, which is also great to hear. And there's just to note that the continued snowpack building is going to, and the snowpack melting rates in the spring and summer are going to depend on the temperatures that we're seeing. So the fortunate thing is that the 10-day forecast is showing some additional storms coming in, and it's looking colder, which is a great thing to see this time of year. So next slide, please. So getting into the graphs that you're used to seeing, this is the precipitation for the Northern Sierra index. And if you take a look here, we are at 95% of normal for that portion. So that. And then for San Joaquin, we're up to 77%. And it's worth noting that both this and the previous slide is up 9% from the last time we met. So we've seen a 9% increase over the last couple of weeks. And then next slide, please. This is a great one here. Now we're up to 80% in the Tulare Basin, which is 16% from last time. So pretty big increase there. We were seeing north and not as much in the southern areas. In fact, there are some areas of the state that have received some of the wettest periods of time in February. Next slide, please. So looking at the snow water content, statewide, we're at an average of 85%. And you can see that in the northern area, we're at 99% of average. So again, this is up 13% from the last time we met. Next slide, please. Reservoirs, there hasn't been a huge change there. Again, we're still at or above average for most of our major reservoirs, excuse me. And you can see here that for Cachuma, Diamond Valley, and San Luis, also still about the same as we were last time, maybe ticked up a little higher. So 97%, 93%, and 66% of capacity, respectively for those. Next slide, please. We did issue another groundwater recharge temporary permit since last time we spoke for the Aliso Water District. That was issued on the 15th. And so we're continuing to process those pretty quickly. As you can see, we're receiving 10, but issuing 9. And we have not received any reports of flood recharge diversions at this point.
Ms. Bean, besides these that we've officially received, are you beginning to hear of other applications for folks out there potentially looking for, what I consider kind of late in the season to try to get in? Just wondering.
That is a very good question. I don't know. I'd have to follow up with our permitting staff about that. I certainly can. I would just note that, again, it becomes more and more challenging if you're not preparing, and getting these things in advance. It just becomes that much more difficult. We certainly work as quickly as we can, but it is more challenging. But I can certainly follow up on that.
Yeah, no, and I think here we need folks to be planning earlier in the year. We're doing our best, obviously. We've streamlined a lot of our process. We're getting a lot of temporary approvals through. And, just to flag, I think there is sometimes some frustration around where we've set our current permit thresholds when it comes to the streamlined process. Probably more for discussion, but, I think we need folks to be planning a little earlier on.
All right, next slide. This is actually my final slide today, doing another push for the water rights annual reports that I mentioned last time. Just did want to mention that we started doing some additional outreach, and the CDFA was able to do a blog post for us, which was fantastic. And we've also been doing some outreach to associations to increase compliance. I did find out that this morning, because this is from yesterday, we're at 62%. So we ticked up a little bit, which is great to see. Still pretty low. We'd like to see some better reporting on that. So again, if anyone is listening that can help to encourage folks to help us get those numbers, they really are vital. It's vital information. And so just wanted to keep making a plug for please submit those to us. Again, we have some next steps listed here in terms of what we can do, but really we just like to encourage people to get that information to us as quickly as possible. And that is what I have for you today. So I'll pause and see if there's any questions.
Thanks. Really appreciate the summary here, and good to see we're again tracking at least just an average year here amongst us, even if there's some intense storms that are rolling through. Vice Chair.
I have a couple of questions. So first of all, on the reporting, could you provide some information regarding which regions, if any, seem to have?
I do not have that information, but I can get it.
Okay.
That's not something that I.
Yeah. Next report, that'd be helpful, I think. And then also for next report, because I doubt you have this information with you, but looking in particular at San Luis Reservoir at 66, just curious if there are, or if there have been pumping constraints during the time of these higher flows. Just curious to see how things line up there. And then lastly, I appreciate, Chair Esquivel, your question on recharge. I think at the appropriate time, it would be great to have an information item on recharge, because I do notice that I think there are a couple of permits that turned into 5-year, which is, exactly why we have so many options, starting at the 180-day and then progressing maybe to 5-year for those that are interested in moving forward and just getting to the public. As far as I know a lot of this is on the website anyway, but just an information item that might provide an opportunity to come in and ask additional questions or raise concerns, because I know we've done a lot over the last several years in this area, and I think we've shown flexibility where it's warranted and appropriate.
I appreciate that, Vice Chair. I double that request. I think it would be good to have just an overview of what's been done, and importantly, provide a forum for some discussion just around the policies. I think sometimes there is still some confusion out in the watersheds as to what is allowed, what are the different avenues and pathways. I know DWR has been a good partner to try to better explain the board's work there, but I think here having an item before the board would be worthwhile. Other board colleagues with any questions or comments?
Thanks, and thank you for the update. I just can't help but comment on the reporting compliance. I think that's, it wastes a huge amount of resources from our overstretched division of water rights and enforcement when we're having to just run around trying to get basic information that's already required to protect the very people that are supposed to be reporting and their water rights. So I think it's incredibly important. I would hope that we really are, in addition to all of the good work, but also work that's going into outreach and, asking people and reminding people to do that we do have to move to enforcement. And I think folks need to understand that. And we need to send a strong message that that's required and critical to the function of our work, and is frankly a waste of everyone's resources and undermines our entire water rights system if folks aren't reporting that basic information. So appreciate the work that goes into that. Appreciate the folks that are doing it. I think it would be great to get a better sense of what the if there's patterns regionally to understand that. I'm sure the folks that are doing that work every day have a good sense for that, but couldn't help but make a note. Thanks.
Thank you, board member. I appreciate that note. You can't manage what you don't measure, and rights come with responsibilities, and the most basic here is just letting us know what you diverted. So kind of a really fundamental premise for the water rights system to work well. So I appreciate that elevation of it, board member. Other colleagues with any questions or comments? We don't have any commenters. So absent that, thank you, Ms. Bean. Appreciate it. Look forward to the next update. That wraps up item number 2 and brings us to item number 3, and kind of a bit of a grouping with item 3 and 4, beginning here first with an update from our Office of the Delta Water Master. So looking forward to introduction of new lead scientists and discussion there too. Good to see you.
Great. Good morning, Chair Esquivel and board members. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning. My report will be relatively brief this morning, intending to kind of give you an update of where we are as we enter 2024 and some key work areas for the Office of the Delta Water Master. Next slide, please. So overall, as you know from our reporting last year, we trailed the calendar for water rights reporting in the legal delta. We did that because we were in our really kind of pilot experimental stage in using OpenET on a platform which you can readily access, www.deltaacp.com, which has provided a mechanism for all reporters in the Delta to report on a unified platform. And so that work continues. We're enhancing the development of the web platform for reporting to incorporate an opportunity to put a placeholder for appropriative rights alongside riparian rights in the 2023 water year platform. And as we were updating the software, we actually delayed implementation. We just opened reporting on the Delta ACP site a couple of weeks ago, but I'm pleased to report that well over a third of water rights holders have already, just in the last 2 weeks, reported their data. So we're a little bit behind the legal timelines, but on a performance basis, I'm very pleased at how the Delta is coming along in terms of using an integrated platform for OpenET-based usage reporting. Along with other agencies working in the Delta, ranging from Delta Protection Commission, Department of Water Resources, Delta Conservancy, and regional agencies, we've also in the fourth quarter begun to do an assessment of overall multi-benefit project needs, really focused on natural infrastructure projects throughout the Delta. And I'll talk about that a little bit more going forward. Additionally, in the fourth quarter last year, we were contacted by Solano County relative to the California Forever project, Flannery LLC acquisitions of properties in Solano County, and the water rights tied to those properties. So we'll talk about that a little bit more today. And finally, we've been working closely with the Delta Conservancy in looking at both water year 22 and water year 23 data for water conservation actions in the legal delta. And that's been very interesting and given us a lot of good data, applying both OpenET, telemetry, and other measuring techniques to really look at both feasibility, effectiveness, and overall cost of water savings in the Delta. And then finally, as we move to 2024, there's renewed energy in the DPIC. I'm certainly pleased to see that, and very actively involved in discussions there with regard to the 2024 science agenda. And I'm pleased to also report that we're continuing very actively in the Delta Measurement Experimental Consortium, which Michael George launched in defining various metrics to measure consumptive use in the Delta, to measure real time. How do we get better at understanding real time water usage and hydrodynamics in the Delta? And that group continues very actively in defining experiments and sharing data openly to better understand and close gaps in how we use OpenET in the Delta. Next slide, please. So what we learned last year is that communication is just vitally important, and I really want to applaud the work of the team that just did tremendous work in this space. Christy Mittal, who sadly is retiring at the end of this month, and we're losing her, but she's been an incredible ambassador with the Delta water agencies and individual water filers to get the information that they need in collaboration with the Central Delta Water Agency, which is really the lead sponsor of the project. And just very actively ensuring that that reporters understand the data, that they have an ability to query the shapefiles, to make sure that we're defining the shapefiles right, so that we really, in developing this first of its kind place-based water rights reporting framework, which really serves as a model for the larger Cal Water's data modernization effort, that we're moving forward together. And I think that's really been the strength of what we've been able to do in the past year. And I continue to bear a debt of gratitude both to Michael George and to Lindsay Kameyer, who really have been with this process. Well, Michael, from its inception in 2017. And if you think about that, you know, we're in 2024 now. We've just completed our first year. And I think it really speaks to the complexity and the need for effective integration with filers and water agencies in this process. So that's been just an incredible learning experience, I think, for all participants at all levels, including from the board out to water rights filers that are exempt because they use less than 10 acre-feet a year. But just talking through the data, what it means, and accessibility of the website, and how to really understand water use in the Delta. Next slide, please. So I think I told you that our goal was to get to 80% for reporting on the platform as we began to see the year unfold last year. We're still within that margin. We are reconciling with less than 50 non-filers to this point, and if we bring them all onto the platform, we'll get to that 80%. So we're, you know, for a first year data filing process, I'm extremely pleased with this. I hope that next year, coming back to you, we can talk about hitting 95% of reporters on a singular platform, so that we can all look at the same data and see the same thing for water year 23 in the Delta. Next slide, please. So finally, I spoke briefly about a process that we've begun to undertake in information sharing with across agencies about what kinds of projects are out there, both organically from the counties as well as across the Delta. And I think what I wanted to really focus on here is the wide range of projects and how we begin to think about these projects through the lens of multiple benefits for the investment of public funds in a particular space. And I think as you look around the Delta, you'll find that those opportunities are quite diverse. Some are more habitat focused, some are more flood protection focused, some are more recreationally focused, some are really looking at all of those elements together. And so I think we need to take a disaggregated view of this place we call the Delta. And even as we think about one Delta, there are lots of subregions with very different vulnerabilities with respect to flood and water quality. And so it's been a great exercise in thinking and working across agencies. Now, of course, we've identified well over 10 billion in need, but I think as you think about a bond structure, we need to have these kind of physical capital investments, whether they are green or gray infrastructure, and thinking about a 15-year project cycle so that if we have a bond reliably every 5 years, we could meet perhaps a third of those needs, so that we're really developing a bond that is structured to meet the needs of the Delta and that can really foster a response to multiple challenges across the Delta, from water quality to flood threats. Next slide, please. So again, and as you look at, this is a map of the legal Delta. And as you kind of envision this, thinking about opportunities for flood protection in the lower Cosumnes, floodplain enhancement in the Cosumnes, the Mokelumne, opportunities for access to recreation in the Eastern Delta, in the bypass. Certainly the Notch project is moving forward. There are a number of wildlife projects that ride along with that and benefit. In some ways, some of those are actually detailed in the voluntary agreement and other elements of a water quality control plan update. And then as you other areas become more complex, and we need to think about hydrology, both delivering water into that space and making sure that we're meeting the needs of all water users and water rights holders in those subregions of the Delta. And then finally, as you wind down to the Southern Delta, I think increasingly we're seeing more and more challenges in Old River and Middle River and at lesser flow levels in seeing the impacts of accumulation of in the tidal zone, and that is really affecting flows in a unique way. And I think a lot of that began to really become apparent after last year's record flows, seeing the San Joaquin flowing above 20,000 CFS for 4 months. As all that sediment came down and hit the mixing zone, it's really changing the hydrology, just even as we are here today. So that's something that I think becomes a watch issue, and something creatively in a broader Delta strategy. Next slide, please. So I touched briefly on a water rights analysis that we're looking at today in our office. We have been working closely and sharing information with Solano County with regard to the very substantial acquisition of properties by Flannery LLC and the entity known as California Forever. There will be a ballot measure in Solano County on a proposal to incorporate a new city near Rio Vista. But overall, Flannery LLC bought approximately 80,000 acres or has options on of land in Solano County, so more than 1/5 the land base. And the county has been very interested in gaining a better understanding of the water rights that attached to all of those acquired land parcels, and what the historic use of water is tied to those parcels. So we're working actively, and we'll have something likely within a month to report to this board and Solano County as well. So we're involved in that process to help them understand really equation as they think about the authorization or incorporation of a new city. Next slide, please. Finally, we have been a little bit delayed in the assimilation of data from year 2 in the Delta Drought Response Pilot Program. What I can share with you is that we continue to find that it is very difficult to conserve water in the legal delta, in part and significantly in part due to the low elevation of land and the intersection of groundwater, surface water resources in the delta, and how that impacts hydrology and the water budget in the delta. So we look forward to bringing this back to the board in June to have a more fulsome discussion about what we're seeing in the data as we look at 2 years of data from and have the opportunity to consider data from an extraordinarily wet year and an extraordinarily dry year. And so we look forward to bringing that back to you probably in June of this year. Next slide, please. So finally, wanted to highlight really a very active science agenda, even as the board is in the midst of consideration of a water quality control plan update. We are working very actively with the Delta Stewardship Council and its science agenda. I'm really, really pleased to introduce the new Delta lead scientist just in just a moment here. And finally, I've enjoyed being a part of the DPIC process, really see an energized group looking to figure out how we respond to the multiple water quality, water management, and overall hydrologic conditions in the Delta to achieve a better balance. And so, as I noted earlier, we continue to very actively tier off the OpenET filing platform in the Office of the Delta Water Master and really to bring consensus on any gaps in knowledge that we need to solve for and design of experiments that help us gain a better understanding of different elevation dynamics, different soil types around the Delta, different hydrologic conditions across seasons, really be able to integrate an understanding of both direct diversion and pumping data, for example, to think about how we really better understand net channel depletion across, again, different months with very different ET conditions, and really get all parties rallying around the same science data set. So I do want to underscore the continuing reliance that we're developing around OpenET. I'm encouraged at the engagement of all stakeholders, representatives of the water projects, as well as in Delta water interests, as well as wider perspective from the science and legal community in this process. So it just remains to be, it's really an inspirational effort in what is an ad hoc science program that continues to bring all comers to the table to raise questions and hopefully help all of us get more complete answers with respect to issues that we need to understand to gain water management in the Delta. Next slide. So with that, I would like, I think she is online. Do we know? Is Lisa Marie there? Yeah. Great. Let's see. Great. All right. Well, I'd like to introduce Lisa Marie Wyndham Myers, who is the Delta research ecologist at USGS in the water resources area. She has more than 100 publications across a range of topics from impacts to inland agriculture to ocean exchange and tidal. She works actively at the intersection of what we call the 4 M's in environmental stewardship and water management: measuring, modeling, mapping, and management. And so I'm delighted to Lisa Marie to join for her first science report for this board. Lisa Marie.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that welcome, Jay. And thank you for accommodating my remote presentation. Can you hear me? Is it?
and easily. Welcome, welcome. So glad to have you with us here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chair Esquivel. I wanted to say I really enjoyed Jessica Bean's update. I'm not in California right now. I'm at an international ocean meeting, and I know you're having a wet period, and it's nice to see how the water year is stacking up. So that was a slice of home for me. It was great to hear. My hope is that I can engage more with the State Water Resources Control Board over a wide array of venues and initiatives this year. So I will be here in this position until the end of June. And I think I'll go to the next slide. Thank you, whomever is advancing my slides. Great. So this is sort of the outline I have for morning. It's not terribly long, but it's sort of updates of the closeout of last year and then what to look forward to this year. I think I'll just get started. So on to the next slide. And so the first thing, I guess, is to introduce myself. So Jay did a lovely job. I appreciate that. I am coming from USGS. I've been working in Delta a long time. I'm going to be in this position until basically the start of July, and I'm really personally focused on collaborative research. I've been working with people across many agencies in the Delta for years now, and much of what I've been doing is national scale lately and global scale with tools that harmonize data from points to much larger pictures and also forecasting into the future. Next slide. Great. So another new face you're going to see around is from the Delta Independent Science Board. They just brought on Kenny Rose, and he will be replacing Steve Grant. And again, with an expertise in fisheries and modeling. I look forward to meeting him myself. And the next change that in the Delta Independent Science Board is going to be Inga Werner is going to become the chair. So it'll be transitioning away from Lisa Wanger, who has a more social science background, has been fantastic in the cancer role. And then Inga's specialty is in contaminants. And so this, I expect to see that sort of rise to perhaps some interest with the State Water Board. And then finally, there's interviews starting literally tomorrow. So Gary Lamberti is going to be giving a presentation tomorrow, and there's a meet greet opportunity to ask questions and give feedback tomorrow. And so I want to make sure I have peppered this talk with links so that makes it easy for you to follow up with some of these points. And his talk is tomorrow, and then my talk is on March 11th. So I'm just telling you in advance. I think we all welcome hearing from agencies that we'll be working with. We want to know what we're doing, or how our vision matches or could be enhanced by a better partnership. So next slide, please. Other updates from the Delta Independent Science Board include this series of workshops that have really been fabulously run and highly productive. I just want to highlight these three. You can actually go on CalSpan and look at archived videos if you're interested, but the first one was a 2-day session in October about managing subsided lands, and they are expecting their review to be released in April. I'm hoping that happens. And I think it's on track. The next one is in November, there was another 2-day workshop focused on food webs, and in particularly the upper trophic level interactions of food webs. And so that one is also going to be released as a review later, but you can see the recording online, the video recording, if you're interested right now. And then the last one was very recent. It was at the end of January, and it was on decision-making under deep uncertainty. So, this is important for us to start thinking about. We have many no analog conditions where we're trying to model things without, full understanding of what's possible. And we still have to make decisions. Therefore, thinking about no regrets actions and really bringing in more social science into the decisions can be a helpful way to move forward. And so again, that's going to be available online. I don't think it's up yet, but if it is, I will find it for you if you can't find it yourself. Okay, next slide. Thank you. Other major product of the Delta Science program is the peer reviews. So we have 2 that are currently going on and 1 that was to happen, but it's going to start probably next year in 2025. And so right now, there's one that's almost released. It's the one for the Bureau of Reclamation, and it's on fish and aquatic effects for long-term operations. And so that one is going to focus on listed species like sturgeon, steelhead, smelt, salmon. And it's focused on, it has 5 reviewers, which are habitat, food web, fish biology, population dynamics, and hydrologic dynamics. Those are the types of focus areas that's being reviewed on. And so that one will be released shortly. We definitely expect that one to come out in April. The next one is just got kicked off literally at the end of January, and that's the summer fall habitat action, again with a focus on smelt, Delta smelt for Department of Water Resources. And this one is has sort of 2 major components: Delta smelt growth, survival, and recruitment. And so it's focused on both the ecology and then also on a structured decision-making approach that's being proposed by DPF. And that one is, again, just started, and we expect that that report will come out in May. The last one, spring run juvenile production estimate, is again focused on Chinook salmon, and that one hasn't quite started yet, and I don't have any details about when that's going to actually kick in and how it's going to be structured, but that's coming up. So then, and next slide, please. Great. And so I also have to just mention the National Academy Review, which is going on right now. Again, a public setting. Anybody can register if you're interested. We just had the last 2 days of January had some talks that are going to be posted, not posted yet, but soon. And then there's a second meeting coming up next week that's going to be at the Hyatt Place in UC Davis. This is the first cycle of a biennial process every 2 years. And it's being led by the past lead scientist, Peter Goodwin. I think I have, yeah, past Delta ISB chair. I'm not quite sure. I don't think that's accurate, but basically the past lead scientist in 2012 and 2015. And he also, in doing this, it's basically a focus on only particular components: the Old and Middle River flows, the Shasta cold cools, and then the summer fall Delta smelt habitat components. So it's just a small part of the overall long-term operations. But if you're interested in those topics, the talks that I saw were incredible, and we had a very hands-on field trip with the Tracy Fish facility, and a very interactive bus tour. That's Matt Young and Josh Israel leading the tour at the front of the bus there, and also the water master was on that bus tour as well, and he might have some other additional comments. All right, next slide. Okay, a Delta Science Program workshop that we are very excited about is it's been open right now. And if you are interested in some of these questions of how to make decisions about, or how to evaluate the potential salinity management actions that we have, and what their implications are, this is a fabulous workshop for you to consider joining. There's 2 days, so if you want to come, consider both days. The first one is on human dimensions of the management actions, and then day 2 is a real focus on what the modelers have found so far, and what further model questions you would like them to address. So it's a interactive discussion with the modelers. And again, there's a link here. It's a QR code. This is one of our really high profile efforts within the Delta Science program. Next slide. Thank you. All right, another workshop product that's come out recently is this new monitoring strategy. And I know that the State Water Board was deeply involved in the structure of this. Not only was it called for by the Central Valley region that the Delta Science program begin a collaborative effort to develop a strategy. In addition, they've a very wide group of people, including Water Board folks, have been instrumental in organizing these workshops, drafting the strategy as authors. And there was a work group kickoff on January 10th. There's already an 80-page document that is going out for public review tomorrow. And I've seen it, and it's going out tomorrow, which is very exciting to be on time. And there'll be, basically 4 to 5 week period here to send in comments. There's also going to be another public meeting, which will be the convening of the Delta Agency Science Work Group. And that's on March 19th, if you'd like to join. And it'll be hybrid, so the opportunity to contribute in person or online. And then it's also going to be presented at the DPIC meeting where we the status of where things are as of the comments that come back by March 25th. So that DPIC meeting is April 15th. And again, I want to emphasize it's a strategy. It's not a exactly how the monitoring should will be done in terms of numbers and units and things like that. It's really a focus on scope, goals, and roles and responsibilities of different collaborative players. Next slide. And I also want to point out that it's building on parallel efforts. This is not starting from scratch. And so multiple people have been involved in this as it's been developed. And I have here on the list on the right of all the organizations that were represented in the November 2022 workshop. And so it's a collaborative effort, and I believe it will lead to a successful implementation when the decision is made about exactly how and who and why, or I should say how and who and when to start it. Okay, thank you. And next slide. All right, here's another one. We're all pretty excited about the Delta Science program. The idea of a integrated modeling framework to basically bring together different modeling approaches and agencies and data sets to work collaboratively instead of competitively. And this has been a community science priority for a long time. There was a proposal of suggestions made by the previous lead scientist, Laurel Larson, who I've stepped in to finish out her term here. And she has made some suggestions. And so right now the Delta Science Plan is looking, talking to modelers about different needs and conceptual visions of how to implement this collaboratory idea. But again, there's a summary online of the workshops that happened last year. If you're interested in contributing more, this is something that we're actively working on and would like to make sure that it is truly a collaborative effort. Okay, so thank you for that. And the next slide. All right, this is the money that people have been waiting for continued research. There's the research award program has been delayed, but it looks like it will be released very, very soon. We're waiting for final approval to release. It's already been written. And this particular cycle of research awards is going to focus on co-production and participatory research. There's a survey that was sent out to try to make stronger connections between scientists and community members. There'll be about $6 million available for projects. And the goal of the projects is that they are responsive to the actions called for in the recent science action agenda. There's 25 actions. So if you're not familiar with that, please look at this link if you're interested. I also want to point out that the Delta Science Fellow Program is also going to be released this year. So that is coming forth. I don't have a date on that yet, but that will be released this year. Okay, and next slide, please. So just in closing, I wanted to share some where we are with in terms of products for you to engage with. Things like the science tracker, which was released last year, and really we want to get feedback from people who see projects that are or aren't being represented on that tracker and how you'd like them represented. The Delta Science Plan is being updated right now. I put all these links in here again so that if you wanted to go further, you're welcome to. The executive summary has finally been released for the State of the Bay Delta Science special issue that was in San Francisco Estuarine and Watershed Sciences. And it's a nice way of just looking at all of these papers that were on plants, algae, organic matter, remote sensing, all the invasive aquatic vegetation, just all of it pulled together into one summary. And so it's a nice way entree to these otherwise, very long papers in a special issue. And then I also want to highlight that the next State of the Bay Delta Science special issue is going to be on extreme events. So there's a section on atmospheric rivers and heat waves and wildfires and so on. And so it's going to be obviously a relevant topical grouping. And then finally, I just want to plug out other areas for engagement. If you haven't already signed up for, but you're interested in, there's the State of the Estuary Conference that's coming up in about, just shy of 3 weeks. There is a, and we have Delta Science Program is sending quite a few people that are basically organizing sessions and leading important workshops, including one on environmental justice on day 1. And then in April, there's going to have the annual workshop of the Interagency Ecological Program again, and it will be free, and it will be in the California Natural Resources Agency building. And there's going to be the day before, or I should say the week before, there's going to be a data skills training course available if you're interested in upping your skills with open science and things like GitHub and access to other people's codes. And then the last one is a save your date or save the date for September 30th through October 2nd. That's the chosen dates for the Bay Delta Science Conference. It'll be in Sacramento at the Safe Credit Union Convention Center. And the theme this year is relevant again in this collaborative framework of cultivating connections for a dynamically changing environment. So again, those are things to have on your radar going forward. And then next slide, please. Thank you. I also just want to point out these products, things to take a look at that you, if you haven't seen them already, you might really enjoy them. The communications team at the Delta Science Council put out a fantastic annual report as a story map with interviews and links and just a series of all the things that happened in 2023 and people's visions of looking forward. I was so impressed with how well it came out. So I really commend the communications team on that one. The next one is Delta Breeze. The last issue came out in November, and it is focused on open science and has quite a few very easy entree articles to think about how we can move towards a more fair and transferable approach to looking at all these science products that are coming out. And then the last one I want to highlight again is, stepping into Laurel's shoes at the end of her tenure. These are big shoes, and Laurel has done a really nice job in this Reflections blog on what she's learned and how she thinks the Delta Science Program can move forward along these pathways of including more social science, including more open and fair science practices. And it's a really nice blog. So I just want to highlight again Laurel's contribution there. It's just a small piece of all that she has accomplished over the past 3 years. And I think the next slide is fine. I just want to thank you again for accommodating my remote presentation, and I can take any questions. Thank you.
But thanks is ours as well, Dr. Wyndham Myers. Really appreciate you stepping in and stepping up here and finishing out the term for the previous lead scientist and a really critical time. As we know, with the decisions before the board and all of us collectively here in these next years, now's the time to really embrace the fact we're in the 21st century and really appreciate the open principles around the development of the science, the modeling, the decision-making, importantly, where here we have a real opportunity to just improve the decision-making space that we all collectively find ourselves in, and especially one of the most, as we know, complicated spaces and estuaries probably out there in the Bay Delta. And, it's not lost on me here and just appreciate the cross-federal, state, local, NGO, academic institution to actually get this done. And here, I think we do have a better opportunity to continue to synthesize the Stewardship Council, the lead scientist role, and here the Office of the Water Master. Even all of you are really involved in some really critical projects that are here. What I'm decision-making space. So just thanks for stepping in. It's really appreciated. And looking to fellow board colleagues, I have a few comments and questions. Kind of touching back, I think, to some of the remarks that the Water Master made around the importance of Open ET, particularly right now, where we need to continue to have a common understanding of water usage, a common platform, and all that work that has gone on into the alternative compliance plan is well laid out for us to benefit as we look at Cal Water's, the Upward project, and our comprehensive water rights data system upgrade, where all of this piloting and learning is giving us a flavor of what is the platform that we can really here look to in the future to not just administer water rights, but have a better discussion, a more cogent discussion as to where water goes, not just in the Delta, but this in massive watershed, 40% of the state that flows through then the Deltas. So just want to acknowledge and just thank the good work I know that's been going on around Open ET and working with, sometimes, oftentimes to be unpacked as to its reliability, its applicability, its difference between, direct diversion data and the relationships there. So I just want to acknowledge and thank, I know a lot of good work that's been going on in the ACP and its applicability ultimately to water rights. And I'll just, I think, while I have the floor, note on the harmful algal blooms work, that is really critical. Certainly the complexity, again, of the Delta is a really good living laboratory and understanding what are the drivers of harmful algal blooms, how do we address them, because with work that the board has identified with biostimulatory work, policies that we're pursuing and trying to flesh out writ large, again, the Delta, I find ourselves having it as a living laboratory that can really help inform those other policy discussions that we're having as to, again, how to reduce the incidence of harmful algal blooms, but importantly, what are the drivers out there, so as to really be able to understand how we begin to actually get to solutions. And there too, that collaborative modeling and collaborative approach to the discussion is really important, because everyone in our communities, whether it's folks experiencing harmful algal blooms or managers on the watersheds themselves, have an opportunity to better understand the issues and also come to some solution, I feel. So just thanks. Again, it's such a critical moment, and just the focus and your work here on continuing to understand how we maximize what are pretty limited, if you look at other estuaries in the nation, federal resources, to this really critical discussion. So thanks for stepping up. It really means a lot, Dr. Board members. We do have one commenter. We have Chris Schutz that we can go to unless folks want to comment now. Board Member Firestone, please.
I'll just add on same themes, but also a thank you and welcome. I think just as you are stepping into this role, we are very much in the process of updating our Bay Delta plan, and that's forefront of mind. And I know there's a lot of ways that there's huge collaborations going on, including a lot of the HABS work, really that you highlighted. But I do just want to highlight that as I look at how we are developing an implementation plan for our water quality control plan update, I do really want to see and understand how our science programs of any, whether it's voluntary agreements or, any of the implementation pieces, how that's really is, and how it's supporting the types of principles around collaborations, transparencies, and that engagement. I think great examples of that you highlighted here include trying to make sure that there's a common vision and understanding of the science being done and how that's able to help inform decision making. I also feel like I've heard now for a few years a lot of the workshops and efforts to do support models of decision making under conditions of deep uncertainty. And that is clearly the world that we live in. And helping us be able to bring principles or frameworks that are coming out of that into what we are crafting and ultimately will adopt in terms of figuring out how to move forward to support those principles and goals, I think would be really helpful. So just wanted to encourage or emphasize that that's certainly where my head is these days on this. And, as you bridge the different agencies and worlds and efforts with us, that's something that the more that you can help us, and certainly the Water Master, I know, Jay, we've talked about this a lot, but that can help us highlight ways that we can do that and support that is going to be really important, especially in the months ahead. But I do really appreciate that, and I look forward to working with you more.
Thank you, board member. Completely agree. Board member McGuire.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Wyndham Myers. I just wanted to say I really appreciate your willingness to step into this role, even on an interim basis, and the report today. I'm always incredibly amazed with how many different areas and studies and programs and initiatives that the Stewardship Council is engaged on. And very much with the other board members' comments, and also wanted to just highlight the item on the Delta Salinity Management Workshop. It's an area that I've been interested in as we're thinking about climate change and different factors that could influence Delta salinity issues. And they do all relate very much to the Bay Delta Plan update that's going on here that board member Firestone just mentioned as well. So thinking about how all of this work, all the time and effort, and I know this has been going on for a couple of years now, or if not longer, the modeling effort and how all that information can help inform either current short-term or longer-term decision-making as it relates to management actions is something that I'm really interested in. So the timing of this workshop in March is great. It's fantastic. I will tune in to some of this, and I'm really interested to see what some of the results are of the modeling work and some of the thinking behind different actions that might be beneficial to this area. So thanks again for the update. Really appreciate it.
Board member. Seeing no other comments currently, we can go to our public commenter. I believe we have one commenter, Chris Schutz.
Good morning, Chair Esquivel and members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to listen to a few comments or to present a few comments. My curiosity was somewhat piqued at the bullet in Mr. Ziegler's presentation regarding water rights for Flannery LLC in Solano County. It was unclear from the noticing what the genesis of that was, and the clarification that the request came from Solano County was helpful to understand. Certainly, there is concern, I'm sure, broadly about where, if this development occurs, the water would come from. And more specifically, at least for me and my organization, if there are new diversions from the Delta, what those would look like and what the basis of right would be. Our request, I think, would be simply that as the Delta Water Master's Office develops some kind of information or report, that as well as releasing that information to Solano County and to this board, that information be made public in some appropriate fashion, that it be that the development of that information or release of it as it happens be publicly noticed, either through the agenda on this board or through some other means, so that we can all have the benefit of this, because many folks, I believe, are kind of wondering what this all looks like. One request I would have and or recommendation for the water master would be that as they're examining where the existing water use is, that they make a distinction between water that's used on particular parcels because of existing water rights, and water that's used pursuant to contracts with Solano irrigation districts or others. I think that is a distinction that is going to be important to understand as we evaluate what the source of water may be, and if there is some kind of transfer of water use from a more agricultural to a urban or suburban setting, how that might change the demographics, if you will, of Solano Irrigation District or other irrigation district or water supply deliveries. Thanks very much for the opportunity to talk.
Thank you, Mr. Schutz. Appreciate those comments. Fellow board colleagues, anything further to discuss? And seeing none, just reiterate thanks here to you, Dr. Wyndham Myers, for again stepping in. Looking forward to having further discussion here. I know, again, this will be a busy spring and certainly a busy year here for us all. So critical time, and really appreciate you stepping up. And thank you for the update, Mr. Ziegler. Thank you both. Let's go ahead and give ourselves a break before we transition to item number 5. Just a quick 10-ish minute break is fine. So let's come back here at 10. Thanks all. All right, everyone. It's about 10:25. We can return. Appreciate everyone for the break. Brings us to item number 5, which is here an item from our Division of Financial Assistance regarding a grant for East Rosi Community Services District. At the top, I want to note we do have translation services. Tenemos interpretación si necesitan y aquí to be able to understand what to do. All right, we can begin. Good to see everyone.
Good morning. Thank you, Board Chair Esquivel, board members. Can you all hear me okay?
Ian, thank you.
Yeah, great. Okay. So good morning again. I'm Chad Fisher. I'm a supervising engineer in the Division of Drinking Water, and I oversee the Division of Drinking Water's Safer section. I want to introduce my colleagues there in person from the Division of Financial Assistance, Brenda Pauley, Matt Freeze, and Ellen Brooks. And I want to thank you all for the opportunity to present this morning on the East Rosi Community Services District and their drinking water consolidation project. Next slide, please. All right, so East Rosi is a small community located in northern Tulare County. It's approximately 20 miles north of the city of Visalia, likewise about 40 miles southeast of the city of Fresno. The East Rosi Community Services District serves drinking water to the community of East Rosi, and they do so through 103 service connections, and they serve a residential population of approximately 650 people. If you look at the map here on the slide, the orange outline is East Rosi, while the blue outline is the nearby community of Arosi, which is served drinking water by the Arosi Public Utilities District. Important to note as we move forward, talking here, both the distance between the two communities, which is about a mile or a mile and a half, and then also the relative size of the two communities. And maybe to make a note there, while East Arosi serves approximately 650 people, Arosi serves approximately 8,000 people. So again, the distance and the relative sizes are important there. Next slide, please. Great, a little bit of background on East Arosi and the drinking water challenges that they've faced over the years, or continue to face. Nitrate contamination dating back to at least 2005. They lack infrastructure, like lack storage, but there's aging infrastructure. Both the wells and the distribution piping there are decades old. They've had numerous monitoring and reporting violations over the years. They suffer from sporadic but not insignificant bacteriological contamination, suffered from water outage, and overall, the community service district there lacks the technical, managerial, and financial capacity to, reliably serve their community a safe drinking water. Right, and next slide, please. So in support of the community of East Arosi, Division of Drinking Water and Division of Financial Assistance have taken several actions in previous years. Bullet number 1 here shows that Division of Drinking Water, in coordination with the Division of Financial Assistance, issued an administrator order to East Arosi. So this ordered East Arosi to accept an administrator, which would provide full management of the drinking water system, and that administrator has full control over all aspects of the East Arosi drinking water system. And then bullet number 2, DDW, or Division of Drinking Water, in coordination with Division of Financial Assistance, issued consolidation orders to the Arosi Public Utilities District and the East Arosi Community Services District. These ordered consolidation of the two drinking water systems, the East Arosi system as the subsumed system and the Arosi system as the receiving system. So I think with that background, I'm now going to turn it over to my colleague there in the room, Brenda Pauley, to complete the rest of the presentation.
Thank you, Chad. So over the last 5 years, I'm sorry, next slide. So over the last 5 years, the Division of Financial Assistance has provided East Arosi about $1.6 million in funding, subsidy funding to keep the system functional. Funds were used for emergency projects, repairs, community outreach and engagement, planning and design documents, assistance with the construction funding application, and more recently for the administration, operation, and maintenance of East Arosi. This funding does not include any funding provided for bottled water. And then due to the dire situation that East Arosi is in, DFA issued the county as administrator of East Arosi an expedited drinking water funding letter for the construction project in September of 2023. And this expedited drinking water grant program is estimated to shorten the schedule by about 9 months. Next slide, please. East Arosi's long-term solution is to consolidate with the Arosi Public Utilities District. And the infrastructure necessary to achieve this consolidation is a new groundwater well, a transmission main to connect the Public Utilities District, a transmission main to connect Arosi to East Arosi, and then within the community of East Arosi, we would install a new distribution system, a storage tank, water laterals, and meters as well. Next slide, please. So the drinking water SRF policy and IUP delegate some authority to the Division of Finance here today to seek approval of the project elements that exceed that authority. First, the current intended use plan allows DFA to approve up to $100,000 per service connection in grant funding for a mandatory consolidation project. And the Division of Financial Assistance estimates that we will actually be providing about $152,900 per service connection to the community of East Arosi. This roughly equates to about $15.9 million. What makes up that $15.9 million is the $1.6 million that we previously discussed to hold over the system, and $13.5 million is estimated to be necessary for this construction project. There is also some additional funds in there that would be used for operations and maintenance administrator and TA needs during the construction or the phase of the construction project. Second, the IUP does limit grant funding to benefit residential connections. East Arosi does include approximately 2 commercial connections that are essential to the full consolidation of the system to Arosi Public Utilities District. And third, the expedited drinking water grant guidelines identify applicants as public agencies, utilities, or public school districts that actually own the public water system, so not the county in this scenario. Next slide, please. And so to address the current policy and IUP authority limitations, DFA staff proposes the approval of the resolution, which includes to provide up to $13.5 million in subsidy funding for this construction project, authorize the Deputy Director of the Division of Financial Assistance to increase subsidy up to above the $152,000 per service connection for good cause, to provide subsidy funding for approximately 2 commercial connections to complete the construction project, and finally, to execute the funding agreement with the County of Tulare or Easter OC. And that concludes our presentation today. Thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you as well. As we noted here at the start, I know the community has been waiting a long while for access to clean water. And here we obviously have caps within our program. And, I just wholeheartedly feel this is important to do. And here I acknowledge that it does take a lot for small communities to be able to have access to clean water into perpetuity. It is costly, and it far exceeds and strips what the communities are able to produce themselves. And so I just appreciate you bringing this item. I know, again, it's been a long time here in discussion, and just thank a lot of the leadership, both importantly in the community and at the county and here at the dais as well. I know Board Member Firestone has been tracking this project, and good to help us get this across the finish line. Looking to fellow board colleagues for comment. We do have a couple of commenters as well. Board Member Firestone, please. Okay. Let's go to a couple quick comments, and we'll have additional discussion here for sure. First, I'd like to call up Carlos Sanchez, be followed by Delia Cervantes, and then here, I believe in the room, we have Ross Miller.
Hello, I don't know if you guys can hear me. Can you guys hear me?
We can. Good morning. Good to see
Hello,
you.
my name is Carlos Sanchez, and I'm speaking as a resident of Easter OC and the hardships that it is not having drinking water in my community. We've been promised for over 20 years that this would happen, but it seems to, for some reason or another, it just never happens, and it never happens, and it never happens. This fight was started a long time ago by my mother and other people in the community, and a lot of these people have passed from illnesses and cancer and many things that they got, I think, is related to not having good drinking water. And so now it's on a second generation, and I keep hearing that we're going to get water soon and that eventually we'll get connected. But it just doesn't seem to happen. And I think that I probably won't see the end of this project because, it's been taken so long. But going to the point is that we suffer from not having enough water to, we're not supposed to use the drinking water because it's not healthy. But 5 gallons of water doesn't last me enough. By the time I use those up, I'm halfway through the month. I can't afford to go buy all that drinking water. So unfortunately, I have to use this water. I have to use the contaminated water to cook. I have to use because I don't have enough water. And because I can't afford to go buy all this water just to be able to cook and do the things I do. On top of that, I still shower with this water. I still brush my teeth with this water. And I still have to go out there and water my plants and the things that I grow to be able to make it, to be able to afford to live. And all that contamination I'm taking it in, but and I'm concerned. I'm concerned for my health, and I'm concerned for the health of the community, because I'm sure that I'm not the only person who has to do this every month. I only get 5 containers of water, but those last me maybe 2 weeks. And then after that, I have to figure out how I'm going to do to be able to survive and to be able to take care of my needs, my basic needs, because I'm not asking for much. I'm asking just the basic need to be able to have affordable, clean drinking water for my community and for myself, so that we can have a better life, for us. And because basically this isn't fair. I hope that you guys would understand the situation that we are in, and I appreciate everything that you guys have done. But I would really appreciate it if this time you guys would keep to the promise and stay on track, and that eventually we will get the water that we need, so that we can, continue to live and survive. Thank you very much for your time.
Importantly, thank you for raising your voice here, your advocacy, and I completely understand your frustration here amongst it. And so we're glad to have this item here to be able to ensure that the funding is here to finally complete this project and have a lasting solution for the community. So thank you for raising your voice, for being here and being part of this important discussion. Next, I'd like to call up Okay, I believe Ms. Cervantes is currently not on the platform, but Ms. Cervantes, if you're on the maybe the YouTube live stream or the Cali PA live stream, you need to be on the Zoom platform. There are instructions at the top of the agenda. If you need to email the clerk of the board, again, it's board.clerk@waterboards.ca.gov. And we'll keep an eye out for Ms. Cervantes here on the platform. Next, then, I'd like to call up Ross Miller. Morning.
Good morning, Chair Esquivel and members of the board. My name is Ross Miller. I'm a chief engineer with the Tulare County Resource Management Agency. The Tulare County Resource Management Agency is both serving as the administrator for the East DeRossi water system, as well as the lead for the future construction project and grant administrator for that as well. I want to thank you and the board for hearing this item. This item continues to be a high priority for the county. It is a difficult and challenging project with a lot of stakeholders. We are working tirelessly to meet with the community, to meet with the various partner entities, as well as continue meeting with our representatives from Water Board as well. I'm here if you have any questions for the county, but thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. I really appreciate the county's leadership here and stepping up, up and down the state. What we really see difference is that local leadership. And so that partnership, your involvement, we just really appreciate it. Thank you for being here. And again, for the leadership with the county here to partner with us to work through, as you said, and these are difficult situations with a lot of complexity, but the partnership is really appreciated. And we wouldn't be able to be here being able to grant the funds and be able to continue to make our commitments here to this work without that partnership. So just thank you deeply for that, Vice Chair.
Thank you. I just wanted to add my thanks as well, and to thank you for being here in person. This is just maybe an opportunity to hear from you about lessons learned. I'd like to hear a little bit more about your experience to the extent that you feel comfortable sharing projects, many others. And so it's just, I think, a good opportunity for us to hear a little bit more.
Well, I could probably go on for days about lessons learned so far, and we're not even close to bidding the project out yet. So it's been a very interesting project. Serving as an administrator, this was, we were one of the early appointments for administrator. It's been a bit of an interesting project and very satisfying working with the board and staff to kind of help develop the program and answer various questions that, weren't entirely anticipated early on. And these are various bridges that we've had to cross. It's also been very interesting working with a lot of the various political entities, the DeRossi PUD with the consolidation order. However, we're trying to work to develop an agreement with them that's more of a voluntary participation as opposed to having to go the mandatory route. And that's provided a lot of challenges. And just overall, the technicalities of this project are not that extreme. It's the other entities, it's the political side of things, it's the funding and getting all of those pieces aligned. And there is definitely some challenges with groundwater in that area, and that's another part of the reason that such a large regional project was necessitated. But it has been very good and a great time working with your staff, and not just Division of Financial Assistance, but DDW as well.
I really appreciate that, Mr. Miller. And to your point, I know administrators as a tool are just so new to us. And so to have folks that are jumping in there and working through what are just untold complexity, I know that you've had to go through, means a lot. And at these tools, I know certainly, and be able to continue to make it easier to be able to apply them. But just really have to, again, just thank and acknowledge the leadership, your personal leadership here as well. And stepping into, as you said, can be some fraught tensions around not just a board, but several boards, and how to best engage across what are a lot of folks that are part of this. So just thank you. Board Member Firestone, please.
Thanks. And thank you for all of your leadership and for coming up here, Ross. Leadership, Carlos, as well. And Carlos didn't mention he's on the, he's one of the few residents that have been willing and able to step up to be actually on the CSD to help it bridge this process. And your leadership has really been critical. So I actually, before I start comments, I just had a question, and I don't know, Ross and Brenda, to put you guys on the spot, you may not know, but I know there's been a big push from all entities to try and accelerate this and give it the urgency that it deserves. And, you highlighted this is one of the early projects where we've used our expedited drinking water program funding. And so I'm interested to know, we're still in the process here, but do we feel like this is working well? Again, this project is really on the cutting edge of a lot of these tools to help us learn and figure out our processes. But it certainly looks promising to be able to ensure that people get safe water 9 months earlier than they otherwise would. And then also, if you can just give an update on schedule and when folks are expected to actually have safe water going into their homes.
Can I look to you, Brenda, to take the lead on this one first?
Sure. So we expect to start construction the summer, fall of this year, and hopefully complete construction by the spring of 2026.
And do you have reflections on the expedited program, either of you, so far? I know you're in the process.
Our feeling is that, we're very excited for the program. We have a lot of hope for it. Unfortunately, not every advantage it provided to us was necessarily the project's critical path, but it definitely did give us a lot more cushion on a lot of other aspects and other items that were going forward. And it gave us a lot more freedom, knowing that the wait for the agreement was now shifted off the critical path, and we're more focused on project design and bidding as we would normally want to be in such a situation.
Right. Yeah. Great. Well, look forward to more reflection on that program, and really appreciate that this is, again, part of that really innovation and the work to try and expedite projects. So I just can't help but make a few comments, because this, as we saw East DeRosie is certainly near and dear to my heart. It, as you said, as I think Chad mentioned, for about 2 decades. 2 decades. So that's generations at this point that people haven't had safe water in their homes. And it is a community that really epitomizes areas that were targeted for disinvestment, specifically listed as one of the 15 communities in the general plan back in the 70s. It's now updated. And again, you can see the county is now very much prioritizing this area. But this area was specifically listed as targeted to exclude investments water infrastructure. And that really meant that public investment passed folks by. And it's also an area where there's pretty intensive agriculture for a long time. There's vulnerable groundwater for a lot of different reasons, and really hasn't ever had that much investment politically or economically. And so when I first started, I got to meet a number of leaders. And Carlos, I don't know if your mother was part of this, but there was a woman named Maria Elena Orozco, who was one of the first women I met. She's since passed away, but she was part of the fight to get, she was relatively young mom, had still, her children are still there, but she was part of efforts to advocate at the regional board to get nitrate protections for groundwater, because that was the primary, continues to be the primary contaminant in that area. And also was a big leader around passing the human right to water. Really amazing woman. And I think just one example of the amazing leaders, Carlos continues those efforts, as do many others in the Vecinos Unidos group. I really can't think of an area. I mean, these are folks that haven't had safe drinking water in their homes for as long as they can remember, but would travel and work to try to help other communities, not just their own, but others, be able to get the protections they need. So I do think there's not, there's no place more deserving and needing than East Arosi. Unfortunately, it's not alone in the position that it's in, but this is one where we are really bringing all of our tools to bear. We've brought our administrator authority, our mandatory consolidation authority. We're bringing emergency assistance, as well as technical and now construction. And we're really looking at long-term solutions and how to make sure, as we do those investments, we're investing smart, so that these community, East Arosi isn't just back on the failing list in a couple of years, but instead we're investing in the long-term solution so that it can have safe drinking water for many decades to come. And also just want to highlight just the partnership that the local agencies and the leadership also at DFA and Division of Drinking Water and from the agencies themselves. Ultimately, in this region, East Arosi is just one of many small communities in northern Tulare County that we are providing assistance to, and that's working on solutions. And so, this is a focus of mine, is looking at how we can support models for regional solutions. There's, many small communities and areas that are on private wells whose wells have gone dry. So looking for a regional solution, I think, is the only way that we're not, that we can move folks away from just chronic unsafe drinking water to sustainable solutions. It's also just an area where there isn't a lot of affordable housing throughout our state. And this is an area where access to housing is critical. And I know the county's been focused on that overall. And so water and wastewater infrastructure is critical to meeting those needs. And these are communities where infill is needed and need to have safe drinking water to be able to provide that. I will say this is areas where there may be an opportunity, or there is an opportunity to look at providing communities surface water and some of the sort of cleaner snowmelt water rather on highly contaminated groundwater in overdrafted areas, or at least have a combination of supply. And that's not true everywhere in the valley, but it is true in this region. And so I look forward to seeing what we're able to do to help support those sorts of long-term solutions. So with that, I would love to make a motion. I don't know if there's more comments, so I'll wait for more comments, but I would love to make a motion to adopt, and I just really appreciate all the leadership.
You're here. Thank you, Board Member Morgan.
Thank you. Just want to quickly, totally in favor of this resolution, and just want to quickly thank everyone who has, brought the project to this point, to this major milestone, and just really also wanted to especially thank Brenda Pauley. Timelines have mentioned, just about 5 years. I know Brenda's been working on this for much longer, having sometimes weekly meetings and really just sticking with it. And so just want to make sure, that wasn't reflected in this timeline of just how much, the dedication of staff and just really, continuing to push forward, and especially, Ms. Polly, who I know has been with this project for a long time, and really just pushing for this long-term solution, and really, having the sight on what is right for the community, and really making sure to bring the parties to the table to make sure that did occur. So wanted to make sure that was acknowledged. So thank you.
Board Member, huge thanks for that acknowledgement, and I echo it. It has been incredible to see this work. We're not at the finish line, but this does mark a significant moment amongst a very storied project, amongst very storied work. And so just thanks all around for the leadership here. With that, we may be ready. Board Member.
Make a motion to adopt with the change sheet. Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you both. Ms. Tyler, can you please call a roll call vote?
Board Member Firestone.
Aye.
Board Member Morgan.
Aye.
Board Member McGuire.
Aye.
Vice Chair Diadamo.
Aye.
Chair Esquivel.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. The unanimous vote is carried here. The item is adopted. Thank you all. Really appreciate it. Again, looking forward to further discussion. Okay, that wraps up item number 5 and brings us to our last item on the agenda today, board member reports. Looking to my fellow board colleagues, I may only have one thing to note.
I can start. So February 14th, I participate in UCLA Luskin School of Public Affairs inaugural meeting at the UC Center here in Sacramento. So it's a new center that they have here on 11th and K Street. And so it's a UC Center in Sacramento, so all the UCs can use it. They had a discussion on water in first, and then they had a second discussion on housing. The discussion on water was titled Changing How and Where Californians Get Their Water. It was centered on Southern California. They're sometimes touched on other areas. So I was on a panel with Senator Ben Allen and Gregory Pierce of UCLA. It was a good discussion, and just talking about just water holistically and the changes and, climate change and just what the future looks like, especially there in Southern California. And then on February 16th, I went down to San Bernardino County, went to the groundbreaking of the South Mesa project. It's a $10.2 million grant from the Division of Financial Assistance. It's just a consolidation project. And so there's South Mesa started off taking a look at their own infrastructure. They have aging infrastructure. Their wells are 53 to 103 years old. And they have undersized distribution systems, so they can't even meet their own demands. And so they started taking a look at that. And so in that, they decided, hey, if we're going to do this project, why don't we go ahead and also consolidate the nearby mobile home park, and because they also have nitrate contamination. And so they started off with just those two pieces. Well, then as they kept going, they were like, well, hey, now we have this pipeline here we're going to abandon, but this here could be used for recharge. So why don't we do some recharge? So then they went and they started doing so there's going to be a recharge project, and it's in between to GSAs. And so they called, the neighboring system and GSA and said, well, okay, are you okay if we did this? And they were like, well, yeah, how can we participate in this project? And then there's also going to be a reservoir. So this ended up being I think it's like 4 agencies involved, multi-projects, and it just kept expanding. And so it was really neat just to go down there and just talk to the agencies to just how did this collaboration come about, and where it started off with just one system saying, and it's a severely disadvantaged community saying, hey, we need to do a project and improve our water system for our our residents, and then saying, well, there's another, you should help them out too. And then growing to be really 2 communities coming together and then a regional project. And so that was it was great to see just how that all came about and how everyone came to the table and said yes. And so since I was down there and I was in San Bernardino County, who has a lot of septic systems, I decided, hey, why don't I go check out what else is going on down here? So also went to a couple of neighborhoods that are on septic and, got to talk to partners that are looking at doing septic to sewer projects also in the area. So it was a good day spent down in Southern California and within the county. So that's it.
There's no that's it about it.
Yeah.
That is a fantastic trip, and just really appreciate you going down there and learning, representing, and reporting back here. Just an incredible series of discussions that, it is the model of so much of the nature of the discussion that needs to be going on around water management. You can't just be looking in your own kind of lane. There is so much opportunity, and it's hard for us to say no on funding a project when you have it addressing so many different components and being really maximizing these investments that we have. So thank you for that, board member. That's fantastic. Vice Chair.
Well, I just want to say thank you also. I just read the press release, but it's way better to hear it from you. That's a really good report. Okay, I only have one on Friday the 9th. I was on a panel at the Delta Leadership Conference, a program that is sponsored by the Delta Protection Commission and the Delta Leadership Nonprofit Foundation. And the purpose of this program is to bring local community leaders together to learn more about the Delta. And so I've appeared before them on several occasions, and I always find the audience to be a really interesting mix of people from all walks of life and diversity. I was on a panel with Dante Namalini, an official from Metropolitan Water District and Department of Water Resources. So we had a really interesting discussion, and then I hung around afterwards because there were 3 tribal members that are in this committee. And so I just used it as an opportunity to talk a little bit more about the Bay Delta Water Quality Control Plan process and racial equity and, things that we're trying to do a course shift and provide for greater outreach and opportunities for their input. It was a good discussion.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Vice Chair, for being there, and agree that, there's just a lot of opportunity to be able to be communicating all that we're doing, and these events afford us a real great opportunity to do that. So thank you. Just quickly for myself, on February 9th, the morning of, attended the Cal DSAL annual conference along with John Bishop. He and I went and talked about the work that the board's done in the water supply strategy for DSAL siting criteria and thoughts about, obviously as we've laid out the potential ocean plan discussion. So it was good to be able to connect with the DSAL community and be able to communicate some of the work that we're doing. And then that afternoon, I was a guest lecturer for remotely for the Bren Water Policy class. Here was from Cora Snyder's class that she had invited me to give just an overview of what the board does, our work, and some of our priorities. So it was a nice opportunity to take a step back, reflect, think about how best to communicate what we're doing. So appreciated that opportunity. And that's all I have.
I have nothing to report.
Yeah, no report today.
All right, thank you all. That wraps up board member reports, and it does not conclude our meeting. We will have a closed session at noon. At this point, I believe we're going to meet up in or
The board will convene for closed session in room 2510.
thank you.
That's in the hallway up on the 25th floor.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Mr. Lawfer. We will just be in recess for about an hour, do closed session, and then we'll close out. Our next board meeting will be, oh gosh, where am I? March 5th. And so look forward to seeing everyone then. Thanks all for a good board meeting and discussion here this morning. See you all soon. Thank you. Be well.